Viewers have been eagerly awaiting the next installment, Bishop Gaiters, of your exciting series on Kobe Bryant. I don't know if anybody else has covered this as extensively as you have. How you doing today, Bishop?
Jason, I'm doing great today. Thank you so much. Do apologize for the lateness. But yeah, I don't think anyone in America or around the world, because my staff and I have been checking, anyone that is teaching concerning the life and the history of Kobe Bryant, at least on this level, they're not. So,
Yeah, certainly not. And, Bishop, you and I have been working diligently behind the scenes to improve the audio and the visual quality of our broadcasts. So thank you for that. I think people will notice that we've really stepped it up. I also want to remind viewers that they can listen to the Bishop on liferadionj.com. People in the New York and New Jersey area can also tune in to 92.9 FM on Thursdays between 7 and 9 and hear the Bishop on the radio. Viewers can support Bishop Gaiters' global spiritual revolution by going to paypal.me/GSRR Media Group. And of course, viewers can sponsor Crowdsource the Truth and gain access to a large library of sponsor-exclusive content by joining us on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Bishop, you and I are pioneers in this world of direct-to-viewer micro-sponsorship where we don't have large corporate entities who are paying you or I millions of dollars a year. While that might be nice, we could buy big houses like Sean Hannity and have boats and things like that. It
right.
seems that these corporate entities, they have an influence over some of the reporting, and Crowdsource the Truth has been hit with a major lawsuit from the nonprofit corporation that runs the Emmy Awards.
That is absolutely asinine. That's insane because, Jason, you are hitting so many nerves with the global Baphomet Luciferian deep state, and it represents the truth that's in you, that God has ordained you. So yeah, keep making them mad, Jason, because the more you make them mad, the more that they will begin to unravel.
They revealed themselves, right? And we spoke last week how NATAS, the National Association of Television Arts and Sciences, in reverse, the inversion of it, spells out Satan. Now, they'll undoubtedly say I'm a conspiracy theorist for pointing out that fact. I don't allege anything beyond that, but certainly if I created an entity that spelled Satan backwards, I might rethink the name, the nickname, the abbreviation, or whatever. I personally feel, Bishop, that some of these traditional media organizations are threatened by the fact that two people like you and I can use our minds and relatively minimal resources to create essentially what is a network of individuals who, as we said, are sponsored by the viewers. People can watch our simulcast right now on the Global Spiritual Revolution Radio and Media Group YouTube channel, absolutely free to join. We've got over 120 people watching us on the live stream on your channel, Bishop. And if people are watching us on Crowdsource the Truth too, they're not watching right now on the Jason Goodman channel because it's been disabled by a YouTube strike issued by Satan in reverse.
And I'm going to point out later on today, Jason, if I had time this week, that the code of the word of Satan is incorporated in a sublet company that is owned by the Sarnar family, who owns the National Broadcasting Corporation. So we're living in some very interesting times right now, Jason.
I'm not sure I understand exactly what you mean, Bishop. The Sarnoff family has been involved in broadcasting for a long, long time, even doing something to one of the early innovators of radio that it's been alleged caused that individual to commit suicide. So they're certainly ruthless business people. What is it that you were referring to just there? Can we touch on that for a moment?
Yeah, well, the Sarnoff family has a sublet company that I don't want to bring out right now, but during the course of today's teaching, because I'm so methodical in the way that I present the information, but I will tell you this, Jason. David Sarnoff, who is the creator of the National Broadcasting Corporation, he created NBC in 1926. And I believe David Hawkins has brought up his name multiple times. Also, he is the founder of RKO Pictures, okay, along with Joseph Kennedy Sr., the father of John F. K. So
Oh, wow.
so David Sarnoff is not only the creator of RK Pictures, but also the Sarnoff family owns NBC today. All right. And so you don't see their name in the press, but David Sarnoff created NBC in 1926. And that name Sarnoff, believe it or not, is interconnected to the Wasserman bloodline, including the Schultz bloodline that we're going to connect today concerning Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. Mind blowing.
Excellent. Yeah, and a lot of people were wondering earlier, Bishop, who this gentleman is that we've pictured seated next to what appears to me to be like a sculpture of somebody about to throw a basketball just behind you in the image there.
Yes, Lou Wasserman, he is heavily connected. The late Lou Wasserman, the grandfather of Casey Wasserman, who runs the Wasserman Media empire there in Hollywood, who signed Kobe Bryant through Arm Tellem in 1996. But Lou Wasserman was heavily connected to the Cleveland mob and also heavily connected to the Lucchese crime family here in New York City, and along with the Cleveland, Ohio Lucchese crime family as well. So Lou Wasserman, the Wasserman bloodline, they're nothing but gangsters, Jason, wearing a
Wow.
suit. And so this is indirectly one of the causes that brought about the deaths of Kobe Bryant and Chadwick Boseman. Not so much directly, but indirectly. So this character, Lou Wasserman, he was Hollywood. He was the man. I mean, had a lot of political power as well as social and financial power. So, but the Wasserman bloodline, we're going to go back into their origins. And also, I found out, Jason, through heavy study this week, that Debbie Wasserman Schultz is related to Lou Wasserman.
Wow, amazing. That was an open
Yes,
question last week,
yes.
Bishop. Now, do you know of, I don't know if I'm sure you have seen the picture before, but did you notice this sculpture here behind Lou Wasserman? I mean, it certainly looks
Yes.
like a basketball, doesn't it?
It looks like a basketball, but also looks like the logo on the insignia of the FIBA soccer,
Huh.
league and two. So, and some years ago that the U.S. doping agency had investigated the FIBA or the FIFA soccer organization because many of the soccer players were blood doping some years ago. But the Wasserman family owns 20% of the FIBA or the FIBA World Cup. They own
Huh.
20% of that. Excellent, excellent picture there, Jason. So both the National Basketball Association and the FIBA World Cup are heavily connected to the Wasserman bloodline today, including Debbie Wasserman Schultz, including her husband, that this information is going to blow away the minds of your listeners today.
Wow. Excellent, Bishop. Well,
Yeah.
let's dive right in. I know everybody's excited to hear what you've prepared for us.
Excellent. Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed, and this would be the last of the volume of the Kobe series until probably a couple months down the road because the Kobe Bryant situation is so fluid and so fast. So then we talked about the manipulation, right, of reality, time, and probability. So then we've been talking about concerning this threefold tier of what you and I call manipulation, the manipulation of reality, isokinesis, the manipulation of time called chronokinesis, and the manipulation of probability, of which you and I call tychokinesis. And that reveals the acronym of the term et cetera, which is one of the occultic languages which witches and warlocks have been using for the past 1,500 years. So that's why the word of God tells us that my people destroy for the lack of knowledge. So the manipulation of reality, the manipulation of time, time warping, in the manipulation of probability, a given set of events, which also breaks down the terms the manipulation of perceived reality in the manipulation in connection to the manipulation of perceived control. So when we talk about the Hollywood industrial complex, it was built upon witches and warlocks, which we're going to bring out. It goes back to the latter part of the 1800s. So then, when we talk about, and you know about the 3D industry, the 3 and the 2D industry. So when we talk about, Jason, the manipulation of reality, time, and probability, there is a major studio in Hollywood called the Pixar Animation Studio. And so what I'm doing, just laying this foundation before we get to the Wassermans, the Schultz, okay, who are also related to the Flagerheimers today in connection to Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. So the term Pixar gives birth to the term pixel. So a pixel is the manipulation of film through the frame of what we call the manipulation through reality, time, and probability. So the Pixar animation studio is part of the Walt Disney Corporation, who are heavily involved in child pedophilia and child sacrifice. And so people may or may not like that, but I really don't care. My job today, my assignment is not to appease people, but to awaken them as we talk about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed quickly. So, Pixar. Now, the term here, Pixar, is a name of a Greek demon in Greek mythology. So, Pixar was called the god of war. So, Pixar was not only called the god of war in both Greek and Cyprian mythology, but Pixar is also called gymnastics or gymnasium. The term gymnasium is a part of Greek mythology. Now, to your listeners, if they get an opportunity, look up the origins of that term gymnastics, or better known as gymnasium, going back to the time of Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates. Many of the adult men within the Greek and the Cyprian Empire used to wrestle with naked boys and naked girls. That's where we get the term gymnastics or gymnasium. And so gymnasium is connected to the god Pixar, the god of war, where naked children would wrestle with naked men and women in a arena. There you go, Jason. So to exercise naked, it's
Wow, who knew
applied.
that?
Yeah, exactly. And so when we're talking about the manipulation of time and probability built upon the foundation of the manipulation of reality, we have to look again at the American sports industrial complex.
Sorry,
So,
Bishop, real
yeah, go
quick.
right ahead.
Look at this Britannica logo. Can you make that out right there? It's really reminiscent of both the Psy logo we've
Yes,
seen before and the poppy flower.
yes,
Weird,
yes.
right?
Yes, some months ago, excellent, Jason. You got a great mind. You don't forget anything. Some months ago, you and I had discussed concerning a corporation through the Sassoon family who had dominated the poppy trade in China from 1839 to 1860, you know? And so the Jardine Matheson Corporation,
Right.
that's not only out of Great Britain, but is headquartered in Hong Kong, who was started by the Jardine Matheson bloodline, who had dominated the opium trade and still do to this day throughout the Golden Triangle. Excellent point there, Jason, as we're talking about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. And so Pixar, Pixel. So when we're talking about manipulation in regards to the life of Kobe Bean Bryant, you and I also have to look at the term cinema or theater. There you go. So the term cinema or theater is a composition, Jason, in Greek mythology stating the place of manipulation. So then, a theater or a cinema is both the apartmentalization, the compartmentalization, and the departmentalization. To compartmentalize by framing the mind of every American through the frame of whether it's 3D or 2D. So Hollywood was designed to frame the perception of the human mind. This is the manipulation of reality, time, and probability concerning Volume 9 of Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project created. In other words, Jason, when we talk about the term here, Pixar or pixel, which is interconnected, Jason, to the word plex or multiplex, right? Or Googleplex, where the frame was designed to frame the human being. Allow me to say this again. So then the frame of Hollywood was designed to frame the perception of not only Americans, but of the human family when we're talking about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. So the frame is designed to frame the human mind. Oh my God, let me say this again. So then the frame is designed to frame the human mind. So then the manipulation of reality, time, and probability. So you and I talked about Genesis 6, Enoch 6, Jude 6, historical social distancing, 7.7 billion people times 6 feet of separation, 46 billion, 200 million degrees of separation. You and I have 46 chromosomes, 23 from the father, 23 from our mothers. Then the number 200 represents the 200 fallen angels in Enoch chapter 6, 20 of which are named, and there were two principality demons that oversaw the 20 fallen angels. In Enoch 6, that makes 22 fallen angels. Now, Jason, there is a major movie studio in Hollywood called Paramount Studios. So, for your listeners here, concerning Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed, if you get an opportunity, Jason, bring up that brand logo of Paramount Studios that has a mountain with 22 stars around it. Well, that brand represents Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon was the location that is the 33rd degree parallel upon the face of the earth. So the Paramount Studios, which I'm going to break down later on, was founded by Kenzarians. Now, I'm not talking about my Jewish brothers and sisters. I am talking about Kenzarians who had built not just Hollywood, but built the frame of deception to frame the perception of Americans, including the world. So the Paramount logo with that mountain and the 22 stars, Jason, represents the 22 fallen angels in Enoch chapter 6. Notice the mountain here. So then the term paramount, so para means also mount, and mount means Hermon. This is where we get the term Mount Hermon or paramount. Mount also means her in Persian or succubation, and mon means male in Persian or incubation. So Paramount Studios was designed by the creators of Paramount to represent Mount Hermon that had the 200 angels. Now remember, 7.7 billion people times 6 feet, 46 billion, 200 million degrees of separation. But there were 200 fallen angels called Enochians, Nephilims, Watchers, and also called Grigores, who had fallen from their first estate. This is in Genesis 6, Enoch 6, Jude 6, 666. So then, as we're breaking down Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed, notice the mountain. That is Mount Hermon. There's a lot of people, Jason, that's going to say, well, Bishop, those 22 stars, in which in the beginning there were 24 stars, going back to the 1912 and 1914 brand of Paramount, they would tell you, well, that represents the first 22 or 24 stars or movie stars that were recruited by Paramount. No. So then Mount Hermon is the Paramount Studio brand. So Mount Hermon is the 33rd degree parallel. Well, there's 33 degrees within the global Masonic order. Also, Jason, the United Nations has a station at the top of Mount Hermon where they do a lot of testing. What type of testing? Is it genetical testing of our messenger DNA or messenger RNA? So the United Nations has a UN station near the top of Mount Hermon, which represents the brand logo, Jason, of Paramount Studios. So as I'm building this foundation here, so in Enoch 6, you have the Enochians, okay, which gave birth to the Nephilims because the daughters of men, according to Genesis 6 and 1 through 3, were fair. So that term fair doesn't mean complexion. That term fair there in Genesis chapter 6, it means that the Enochians were searching for a particular blood type or a fair blood type of these women. Because of this union, these women gave birth to Nephilims or giants, who then gave birth to watchers, who then gave birth to Grigores. How do you spell Grigori? Grigori. So it was Pope Gregory the 13th, Jason, in 1582 AD, who created the Gregorian calendar. Where did he get that knowledge? From the time of the fallen angels through the Grigores, who taught the daughters of men concerning the 12-month calendar. This is called the manipulation of time. So, in other words, Jason, the 12-month calendar is not based upon the timology of God. It's based upon the time of what the demons of the fallen angels taught the daughters of men. So the Grigores are the offsprings of both the Enochians, the Nephilims, and the Watchers. Grigori demons, this is what we call the Gregorian calendar, Jason. So when we're talking about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed, and it gets deeper, and jump in anytime if you see something.
Well, I did want to share something with you, Bishop, real
Go right
quick,
ahead.
while we're still on Paramount Studios, because I've been there. I've been on the lot. I've done work there. I've had meetings there. I'm just looking at it here on Google Earth. And one of the features of Paramount Studios, let me make sure that I've got this correct. I think it's Paramount. I'm pretty sure it's Paramount. They have a large, essentially swimming pool there. It's like a tank. And so a lot of films that you've seen that are shot on the water, they do it in this tank. This building is painted up with some whales. I don't know what, this is one of their sound stages. I don't know what significance whales have, but just in walking around the building here in Google Earth, trying to get to the main entrance, which I've driven through when I lived in LA, I found this entrance, which I've never personally seen before. I don't know if you read Hebrew, Bishop, but somebody in the audience will. I had no idea they had this Hebrew writing on an entrance to Paramount, their main lot. It's strange,
That's something
isn't it?
that we have to look into, and any one of your listeners can look that up. I believe that is in Ashkenazi Hebrew letters. There's a difference. When people say I speak Hebrew, I always respond to them, well, what dialect do you speak? Okay, is it Ashkenazi? Is it Hasidical? Is it Sephardical? In actuality, going back thousands of years, there are at least 300 different dialects of Hebrew. But that's something that we have to look into. Why would the powers that be at Paramount, which represents the Mount Hermon of Genesis 6, Enoch 6, and Jude 6, put that lettering, not in English, Jason, but in Hebrew? Now, as a side point, Adolf Zucker, including a man, get this, Jason, by the name of Jesse L. Lasky, had created Paramount Studios, including a third person. But this man, Jesse L. Lasky, okay, was not born Jesse L. Lasky. Excellent link there, Jason. He was born Jesse L. Shuchow Lansky. Allow me to spell that. Capital Schowlansky. So he changed his name not once but twice,
Huh.
okay, from Shukowski of Shukow Lansky to Lasky. Then later, the bloodline of the Laskys changed their name, Jason, from Lasky to Lansky. So thereby, the bloodline of Meyer Lansky, the gangster, is connected to Jesse L. Lasky or to the Shukow Lansky bloodline. Now, I'm not blaming them for anything. I'm just saying it's gangsters that have created Hollywood, but more specifically, Paramount Studios, which the mountain is a symbol of Mount Hermon, going back to Genesis 6, Enoch 6, and Jude 6, 666. So Jesse L. Lasky's generations were not born Lasky. I want to point that out. They were born Shukow Lansky, which his grandfather was born in the Russian Federation. And Jason, as a side note, most of your Hollywood moguls today, their bloodline that goes back 500 to 800 years comes from both the Russian Federation and throughout Eastern Europe. As we're talking about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed.
Bishop,
So
one more
then,
quick item on
go right ahead.
Paramount before we move on from that, because
Yeah.
I also found this. I remember as a kid, there was a period where I don't even know why I noticed this, but when that Paramount logo would come on the screen, it would say a Gulf and Western company. And I thought to myself,
Ah,
what does that mean? But I
yeah,
now, as an adult, know that Gulf and Western were a huge oil company. Interestingly, this information comes to us
yeah,
from Britannica, which, as I think about it,
yeah,
it makes sense. If you can establish a brand, I mean, Britannica, that's the encyclopedia. If it's in there, it must be true. So if
yeah.
we control that brand, we can control what people perceive as true. Gulf and Western Corporation was founded in 1958 by Charles Bluedorn and became one of the
Mm,
most highly diversified conglomerates in the United
wow.
States. Gulf and Western took control of Paramount Pictures Corporation in 1966, and they changed its name to Paramount Communications. This is like Gulf gasoline, Gulf and Western. And
Absolutely. And now Viacom owns
right.
Paramount Studios. Well, who owns Viacom? Indirectly, the Bronfman family still owns it.
Hmm.
Okay, not officially, but unofficially. In the Bronfman family, they were not born Bronfmans. They were born Schultz, Jason, going back to
Hmm.
the 1500s. In other words, not to get ahead of us, they're all related by blood. As we're talking about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. So the Bronfman family, along with the generations of Casey Wasserman going back into his bloodline, they had controlled alcohol even up during the time of Prohibition. The Bronfmans and the Wassermans used to bring over illegal alcohol from Montreal through Windsor, Canada, into Detroit, Michigan. And so then the Paramount Studios, excellent point, Jason. So when we look at Paramount, there's 22 stars. Not only are there 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, but it represents the 22 fallen angels. Now, anytime you look at a modern day Paramount studio movie, at the beginning it shows fallen stars, right? And the fallen stars, the edge of a star goes across the water.
Yeah.
According to not both Nachmanides and Maimonides, who were some of the greatest Jewish historians and scholars in history, they had said that the fallen angels, Anakians, right, Nephilims, the Watchers, the Gregories, who are now called evil spirits, foul spirits, and unclean spirits, when they fell, they would go across the waters in the oceans around Mount Hermon, the rivers of Mount Hermon, in order to occupy the 33rd degree parallel, which is Mount Hermon, which is the Paramount Studio brand. So those angels, there you go, that are those are symbols of the fallen angels, Jason, going back nearly 4,000 years in Genesis 6, Enoch 6, and revealed in Jude 6, 6, 6, 6, historical, spiritual, social distancing. So then to understand the natural realm, we have to examine the spiritual realm because it's a spiritual paradigm. When we're talking about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. Interesting. So Paramount is built upon the psyop of Enoch 6 with the 200 fallen angels.
Wow.
Now, the demons today, Jason, called evil spirits, foul spirits, unclean spirits, or as the word of the Lord says, principalities, powers, rulers of the darkness of this world. And as a side note, if there are rulers of the darkness of this world, there has to be rulers of the darkness of other worlds, spiritual wickedness in high places, which means the demons today are the fifth generational offspring of the Enochians of Enoch 6, and they are the sixth generational offspring of Lucifer. Another topic for another day. So then, Paramount is Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon is situated between Syria and Lebanon. Okay, so Paramount Studios represents the 33rd degree parallel, which is Mount Hermon, Jason. Now, remember quickly, from a biblical standpoint, in Revelation 12 and 4, that a third part of the angelic government of God had rebelled against God. Why? Because they wanted God to abdicate his throne, not a chair, but the throne of his thinking. So then, another topic for another day. So then, when we're talking about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. Now, quickly, I'm going to say something to your listeners, and it's going to sound radical, but they have to listen to what the bishop is saying. Now, when that third part of the angels of God had sinned, according to Revelation 12 and 4, that goes back to Genesis 6, Enoch 6, that's revealed in Jude 6, 6, 6, 6. A third part mathematically represents 666 degrees or percentile of the angelic government fell, where they were infected by the tail of Lucifer. So the term his tail is where we get the term Satanale, okay, or Satanale, okay. And so a third part, which is 0.93, there's that 33 again, the 33 degree parallel, Mount Hermon, which represents the brand logo of Paramount Studios. So it's all interconnected. Hollywood, the one of a witch, is made out of Hollywood. It is built upon the schematical structure, Jason, of manipulation, the manipulation of reality, time, and probability through witchcraft. So then, quickly here, man, I love teaching here. So it's going to get deeper here. So when we're talking about you and I as being, we are called human beings. But according to Genesis 6, it says the serpent speaks 46 words to the woman, according to the King James Version, in chapter 3, verses 1, dropping down to verses 4 and 5. So before the fall of man, you and I did not have any chromosomes. There was no need to have a chromosome because we had the DNA of God inside of us. So the serpent speaks to the woman. This is powerful in Genesis 3 and 6. A tree to be desired to make one wise. Well, the Ashkenazi Hebrew interpretation of the word wise is the term sapient. Jason's, oh, there you go. Excellent. A tree to be desired to make one wise, or a tree to be desired to make one a sapient or a homo sapient. So man was not designed by God to be a homo sapient or a species on the level of an animal. And this is where we get the term animation, or that which is animalistic. Animation, animalistic. The manipulation of the mind through the screen that you and I call a frame, in order to frame mankind into the thinking of not a God, but of demons. So we were not designed by God to be a Homo sapien, a species, or even the term human. Oh my God, I got everyone's attention now. That word human is not in the Word of God. It's not in the Torah. It's not in the Tanakh. It's not in the Zohar. It's not in the Mishnah or the Midrash. So you and I were not designed by God to be a Homo sapien, a species, or a hybrid called human. You not only means color, it means a body that's been genetically altered. So the term human, Jason, does not come into fruition until the 13th century. So then, when talking about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. Now, Jason is going to get deeper here.
Before we go deeper, Bishop, I've just discovered yet another thing.
I see that.
Yeah. Well, when you mentioned animation, I've always been particularly fond of animation. When I was a young kid, I would do animation and things like that. And obviously, my career eventually went sort of in that direction. So I just Googled history of animation, and really one of the first devices that allowed modern animation to be made was invented in, of all years, 1833. The stroboscopic disc, better known as the
Wow.
phenakistoscope, which we see a demonstration of right here. I wasn't previously familiar with this. I'm familiar with the zoetrope, which is similar. But Bishop, look at the symbol in the center of this sample that's given to us.
Wow, the center, Jason, is called a fulcrum. Capital Folcrum, a fulcrum, which is the center. So the center of Hollywood, okay, has nothing to do with God. In other words, they don't want God as the fulcrum or as the center of its foundation. I'm talking about Hollywood. Why? Because all those characters that are walking around the fulcrum, okay, of that six-pointed so-called Star of David, which is nothing more than a hexagram or a pentagram. So Hollywood is built upon the psyop, the government of Satan, which is both a six-pointed hexagram and a six-pointed pentagram. Now, Jason, say right there to that picture. 6 men out of the Russian Federation had immigrated to the United States in the late 1800s. They represent, now, according to a Jewish writer by the name of Dr. Neil Gabler, or Neil Gabler, capital Gabler. His book called How the Jews Invented Hollywood. Now, I'm about to say, this is nothing against our Jewish brothers and sisters. So the scholars of these books that I'm going to quote are Jewish, okay? I want to point that out. So, How the Jews Invented Hollywood by Neil Gabler. He says Jack Warner, Warner Brothers, Louis B. Mayer, Metro Golden Mayer, Carl Laemmle, Universal Pictures, Samuel Goldwyn, MGM, Metro Golden Mayer, Darren F. Zanuck, and William Fox, who created the Fox Movie Corporation. Zanuck created 20th Century Fox. These represent the six-pointed Star of David, or a hexagram of the pentagram of the creation of Hollywood. Jason, it's mind blowing. So that six-pointed hexagram or pentagram represents Jack Warner, Louis B. Mayer, Carl Laemmle, Samuel Goldwyn, Darren F. Zanuck, and William Fox, who are the foundation of the creation of the manipulation of reality, time, and probability. Now, I'm not castigating, listen, the bloodline of these men. They were geniuses. But Jason, along the way, they, along with the backing of the Rothschilds, had created the manipulation of the person's, not just the person's reality, time, and probability, but they have manipulated the frame of people's perception of how they see the world. So from Jack Warner to William Fox, they are that six-pointed hexagram that you revealed a couple of minutes ago, where the actors are the people going around in the circle. They're they are rich, but they're not wealthy. I'm talking about stars and celebrities, because they're controlled by the fulcrum or the center of Hollywood, which is Luciferic, satanic, and devilish. As we're talking about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. So, along with Adolf Zucker and Jesse L. Lasker, who then his bloodline eventually changed their name to Lansky. And those people walking around that six-pointed hexagram or pentagram are celebrities from the music industry, celebrities from the television industry, celebrities from the movie or the cinematic industry, including the stage, who are controlled remotely through kinetics or kinesis. Their entire lives, their reality is controlled by the spirit of these six men. Their time is controlled by the spirit of these six men. And the probability of their lives are controlled by the spirit of these six men. Not because they're Jewish, but because they were atheists, had laid the foundation concerning the manipulation of the world through reality, time, and probability, which also is the foundation, my friend, of the manipulation, okay, of perceived reality in the manipulation of perceived control. As we're talking about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. And Jason, jump in time because it gets deeper here. So then we go to the life of Kobe Bean Bryant. So then Kobe Bryant's former business partner, Jeffrey Morgan Steibel. Now, remember that law firm with Pamela Mackey, right? Haddon, Morgan, and Foreman out of Denver, Colorado. I'll bring her up later on in the broadcast. Kobe Bryant meets his business partner, Jeffrey Morgan Steibel, in 2013. So, Jason, in 1996, Kobe Bryant is drafted as the 13th pick of the 1996 NBA draft. And notice that symbol there of the Haddon Morgan Foreman law firm, who they are representing one Jesselyn Maxwell. And Jason, I will bring up the Maxwell bloodline that is going to blow your mind as we're talking about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. That symbol, before we get back to Kobe Bryant, of the Haddon Morgan and Foreman law firm, it is shaped like the anatomy of a man. When you look at the Amazon logo or insignia, it shows, excuse the expression, a penis from the letter A to the letter N, okay? From the letter A to the letter Z. So why would Jeff Bezos create a logo that will show the phallic of a male? You're dealing not just with psychopaths, you're dealing with sociopaths from A to Z. So then that is connected also to the logo of the Haddon Foreman and Haddon Morgan and Foreman law firm in Denver, Colorado, including, remember that logo of the Chicago Bulls basketball team, of the bull. If you turn it upside down, it shows a robot that is sodomizing someone. Okay, Jason, these are both psychopaths, talking about the deep state, and sociopaths. There you go. Now, somebody may say, well, Bishop, it represents a robot reading the book. Stop. No, these are psychopaths. The truth is right in front of us as we're methodically breaking down Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. So in 1996, Kobe Bryant is the 13th pick. Kobe Bryant is the 13th pick in the 1996 draft. Well, the number 13 represents the first 13 degrees of the Masonic order. On the back of the $1 bill, it has a pyramid or a pyramid, which has 13 steps of bricks going up to the eye of Lucifer, or that which is Luciferic. This is where we get the term like vaccinate or lucificate or vaccination or lucification. So then Kobe Bryant is drafted by the Charlotte Hornets, later traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. So then he is represented, Jason, by an attorney and an agent by the name of Arm Tellum. Arm Tellum, at the time, spent 34 years at the Wasserman Media Group. Now, the Wasserman Media Group, as we talked about last week, was created by Casey Wasserman. So then Casey Wasserman's grandfather, okay, is Lou Wasserman, okay? And we will get to that in the next couple of minutes. So then the Wasserman Corporation, okay, the media group, was founded by the grandson of Lou Wasserman, Casey Wasserman, who constantly, if you look on the Wasserman Instagram site, he's constantly talking about his clients who are Black men and women. Because one of the links in Instagram, it says, well, does your Black clients know what you're saying about them? And I'm not saying this because he's Jewish. I'm saying this, Jason, because these people are wicked and they're gangsters. As we're talking about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed.
He's got his Instagram set to private, Bishop. We're not able to see it.
Well, I tell you what, I will definitely send that to. I have a friend out of Hawaii. She had sent me a Instagram link where he talks about some Black athletes, and one of his workers that works under him was messaging him through Instagram. If only your Black clients would know what you're saying about them. Now, I'm not castigating Mr. Wasserman. I'm just connecting him to the life of Kobe Bryant, being a Luciferian project completed. His mother is a woman by the name of Lynn Ann Wasserman, who is the daughter of Lou Wasserman, who was a gangster who ran MCA, the Music Corporation of America. So then Lou Wasserman was not just a brutal talent agent and a studio executive, but Lou Wasserman was connected, Jason, to a killer by the name of Frankie Carbo. Well, Frankie Carbo of the Lucchese crime family here in New York City, okay, including the Cleveland, Ohio chapter of the Lucchese family, Frankie Carbo ran the boxing industry from the 1940s to the 1950s, okay? So Frankie Carbo, along with John Scalish, Mo Dalitz, who had created Las Vegas, along with Bugsy Siegel, were close friends and they were connected to the Jewish mob, okay, with Lou Wasserman. And Lou Wasserman also was connected to Murder Incorporated. No, he was not a part of Murder Incorporated, but the killers were all Jewish, Jason. And again, I'm not being anti Semitic, I'm just connecting dots that will bring us to the life of both Kobe Bryant and Chadwick Boseman. That these people became casualties of war in Hollywood. As we're talking about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. Also, the father of Lou Wasserman was Isaac Wasserman, okay, out of the Bolshevik Revolution. Now, the 1971 book by Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radicals, he had said that his father, Benjamin Alinsky, okay, and Sarah Tannenbaum, not that Isaac Wasserman. So Sarah Tannenbaum and Benjamin Alinsky were connected to Lenin, Stalin, and Trotsky. This is in the 1971 book by Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radicals, that they said that Isaac Wasserman and his wife, Minnie Chernak Wasserman, immigrated to Cleveland, Ohio in 1918, the same year that the Alinsky, who had helped Lenin, Stalin, and Trotsky to destroy the Romanov bloodline. And I'm going to prove to you later that the Romanov bloodline was also Khazarian. As we're talking about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. In that the Wasserman bloodline that goes back to the 1500s during the time of Peter the Great and Catherine the Great, 1 and 2. So then, Dr. Paul von Wasserman, who had created, Jason, the Wasserman syphilis test. So then, from 1932 to 1972, Dr. Paul von Wasserman and the doctors working under him, being connected to the United States government, had Jason, okay, and then Paul Wasserman, who had died 7 years before the Tuskegee syphilis conspiracy, that through the Wasserman syphilis test, they had injected 600 Black men and women to see how the Black anatomy would respond. Demonic. So Dr. Paul von Wasserman, who had passed away 7 years prior to the Tuskegee experiment, but his testing system was used on Black Americans. As we're talking about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. And so then in 1996, Jason, it gets deeper. 1996, then Kobe Bryant, who is signed by Armed Talent, then Kobe Bryant gets himself in legal trouble in 2003. We won't go through that. I've taught your listeners that so many times. So in 2003, Kobe Bryant is sold like a slave from the Wasserman Media Group to Rob Pelinka and the Landmark Agency Group in Hollywood. Why? Because Casey Wasserman did not want anything to do with Kobe Bryant because of the rape allegation. And so then in 2013, Kobe Bryant is introduced to Jeffrey Morgan Stable by who? Rob Pelinka, who is Phi Beta Kappa from the University of Michigan, okay, who is now the president of basketball operations and the general manager of the Los Angeles Lakers, who was the last one that supposedly talked to Kobe Bryant. And he said at the memorial, and you and I talked about this, at the Kobe Bryant's memorial back in February, that he had texted Kobe Bryant and then called Kobe Bryant when that plane, that Sikorsky 76B helicopter, was going to the ground 180 miles an hour, which I don't even believe Rob Pelinka, because if that's the case, how would Rob Pelinka know that Kobe Bryant was on that helicopter? As we're talking about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. The year prior, in 2012, Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, the richest man in Hollywood, an Asian doctor, okay, a scientist, introduced Jeff Stable to Rob Pelinka. Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong is a minority owner of the LA Lakers. 2 years prior, Jason, in 2010, Lawrence D. Fink, okay, and David Hawkins teaches a powerful lesson concerning the BlackRock Fund that controls the teachers' pension fund here in the United States and around the world in Eastern, Central, and Western Europe. So Lawrence D. Fink, through the BlackRock Fund, introduced Jeff Stable to Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong. Lawrence D. Fink, through the BlackRock Fund, okay, formerly owned the Carlyle Group, which was formerly owned by the Bin Laden family, that's connected to the missing Malaysia flight 370. So that's another topic for another day. As we continue with Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. Now, Jason, back in 2007, it gets deeper here. That was the year that Kobe Bryant wanted a trade. So Adam Silver, who is now, Jason, the commissioner of the the National Basketball Association, then he was the deputy commissioner of the NBA. He introduced, okay, Jeffrey Morgan Stable to Lawrence D. Fink. In 2004, the late David Stern, who died 1 month before the death of Kobe Bryant. As a side note, David Stern, who was very close to Kobe Bryant, was set to testify before Congress, okay, 2 weeks before Kobe died, concerning the National Basketball Association's, the NBA's connection to organized crime and gambling. And then David Stern died. He probably died because he had a medical condition. But Jason, when you're dealing with psychopaths and sociopaths, nothing is by accident. As we're talking about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed.
What do you think about the significance, Bishop, of David Stern dying at age 77?
No, again, Jason, and that number 77, according to the Jewish and rabbinical gematria, is a number of transitioning. It is a number of transitioning, not just according to the Ashkenazi gematria text, but also the Hasidical and the Sephardical. So when you talk about gematria, there are thousands of sublet divisions of Jewish gematria. So when you talk about Hebrew gematria, are you talking about Ashkenazi? Or are you talking about Hasidical or Sephardic? So the number 77 is a Jewish gematria term or number signifying transitioning, okay? So then David Stern, the late David Stern, former commissioner of the NBA, introduces Jeff Stable to Adam Silver. So in 2003, from this rape case, Arm Tellem had represented Kobe Bryant from 1996 to the year 2003. Now, Chadwick Boseman had met Kobe Bryant 4 distinct times, okay? So then Chadwick Boseman is a member of Sigma Pi Phi. In other words, Chadwick Boseman is Boule. He's a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. He's a graduate of Howard University. Chadwick Boseman is a graduate of Howard University, in which he gave a commencement at one of the graduations at Howard a few years ago. So Chadwick Boseman had died. Listen to this, Jason. From the death of Kobe Bryant to the death of Chadwick Boseman is approximately 215 days. And that number 215, my friend, is one of the 3 area codes for Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now, and people may say, well, it's accidental, it's by chance. When you're dealing with the global Baphomet Luciferian deep state, numbers are very critical. So from the death of Kobe Bryant to the death of Chadwick Boseman is a composition of 215 days, but one of the 3 area codes for Philadelphia, Pennsylvania is area code 215. So Chadwick Boseman met Kobe Bryant for the first time in 2018 in February, right after the Oscars at an after party, where Chadwick Boseman and Kobe Bryant were planning an exit from Hollywood, or at least from the system. They wanted to create their own studio through Kobe Bryant's Granity Studios, because Chadwick Boseman had said in an interview, Jason, on the same day that Kobe was taken out, on the 26th of January, 2020, January 26, 2020, that Chadwick Boseman, was told by the director and the writer of the Black Panther series, Ryan Coogler, who is also Alpha Phi Alpha or Boule, that Chadwick Boseman, was being phased out of the Black Panther character. Now, according to the LA Times, just take it for what it's worth, okay? Because we know that LA Times is fake news. That the family of Chadwick Boseman had pushed for an autopsy, which, according to the autopsy, his body had contained thallium and arsenic, which predated his colon cancer diagnosis. Now, what does that? Does it mean that he was poisoned? Now, I'm going to give you my interpretation. I cannot prove this, Jason, so I don't want people to run with this as we're talking about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. I believe that the system had poisoned him. He did not become sick. Chadwick Boseman did not become sick until after his first meeting with Kobe Bryant in February of 2018. So then, when you talk about pulling away from the Hollywood hexagram industrial complex and the Hollywood pentagram industrial complex that was started by 6 Kenzarians with Rothschild money, then your life would be on the line. And again, I'm not talking about my Jewish brothers and sisters. I am talking about 6 men with Rothschild money, with that pentagram of the so-called Star of David, that hexagram that you revealed 5-10 minutes ago. All of those celebrities represents the movie industry, okay? The television industry, the music industry. Clyde Davis, a Kazarian, David Geffen, Jeffrey Katzenberg. They are the pentagram and the hexagram of the structure called Hollywood. The one of a witch made out of Hollywood that practices the manipulation of reality, time, and probability. Now, a black woman, a Boulez by the name of Letita Wright, capital Letita, who plays the sister, Shuri, capital Shuri, the sister of T'Challa. Now, in the Black Panther magazine that was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby in 1966, a year after the death of Malcolm X. Interesting. So then they created T'Challa. Now, T'Challa becomes touched by Doctor Doom, where 4 years later, according to the premise of the Black Panther comic book, T'Challa dies after 4 years of suffering. Well, Chadwick Boseman, we are told by the Crack News Network through Don Sweet Tea Lemon, okay, and Christopher Fredo Cuomo, and through the MSNBC Garbage Network, through Rachel Mad Cow Maddow, we are told that Chadwick Boseman was suffering for 4 years. Jason, this is the manipulation of reality, time, and probability in connection to the life of one Kobe Bryant. Now, if you see
Bishop,
anything, jump right in. Go right ahead.
yeah, haven't there been some recent reports that there was some violence recently, that there's a group claiming to be the new Black Panthers or something like
Yeah,
that?
I'm so happy that you, oh, Jason, you know, it's amazing, man, my friend. It was like you were right here in my apartment last night. Let me tell you something. The new Black Panther Party, I'm going to say this, okay? There is a lawyer by the name of Malik Shabazz. I don't trust him. Now, I cannot prove this, but the new Black Panther Party had a powerful leader by the name of Dr. Khalid Muhammad, who was excommunicated from the Nation of Islam because of anti-Semitic comments that Dr. Khalid Muhammad made at King College. I am not blaming Malik Shabazz for the death of Dr. Khalid Muhammad, but Dr. Khalid Muhammad was poisoned. Why? Because there was a Judas and a Benedict Arnold within the new Black Panther Party that was high up that had poisoned Dr. Khalid Muhammad, because Dr. Khalid Muhammad was a powerful voice. Okay. I wanted to interview him years ago. Okay. Matter of fact, I had called his people 2 weeks before he died. We tried to set up an interview with him. He was poisoned. Okay. Then he dies of a brain tumor. So
Whoa.
then, so then Dr. Khalid Muhammad was poisoned. Now, according to a lot of black people that I know who are pastors in the church, they attended his funeral, the funeral of Dr. Khalid Muhammad, and they said that the face of Dr. Muhammad was so disfigured because he was poisoned. Okay,
Well,
and
Bishop,
so yes,
people might not recall when you and I first met, our initial interviews were delayed because you were poisoned and you sent me photos that I don't
yeah,
think we've shared publicly because you
no.
looked, I can't believe you survived.
Yeah, and matter of fact, and those photos are just for you, Jason, not for the public.
Haven't shared them.
Now, after the litigation is over, then you can show them to the public with my approval. But
Ooh.
I was disfigured because the bishop was poisoned. Okay, so I sent those pictures to David Hawkins and to you, Brother Jason. So yes, and don't show those pictures until after the litigation is over. But you saw it firsthand.
It
So
was scary.
this is what happened to Dr. Khalid Muhammad. Somebody in the new Black Panther Party who was working for the deep state had poisoned that man, because some years ago, Dr. Khalid Muhammad was shot. I think it was in California.
Wow.
So someone wanted to take him. Dr. Khalid Muhammad was exposing Louis Farrakhan, was
Is this him?
exposing, no, that is Dr. Khalid Muhammad's son,
Ah.
but that's not him. as you go back, there you go. That's Dr. Khalid Muhammad, a warrior. Now, I don't believe of everything he was teaching, but from a black perspective, the brother was a warrior. And he didn't kiss anyone's behind, but he was poisoned by someone within the new Black Panther Party.
Do you
Okay.
think they poisoned you?
What's that, Jason?
Do you think it was the new Black Panther Party that was responsible for poisoning you, Bishop?
Well, that's a great I don't know. At the time, February, of last year, I was heavily speaking out against the Boule Secret Society in the new Black Panther Party, because the original Black Panther Party, those members the few who are still alive, they don't like the new Black Panther Party. They think the new Black Panther Party are a bunch of goons. I'm talking about the original Black Panther Party, okay? They don't respect nor honor the new Black Panther Party, because the new Black Panther Party is looked upon as something that is disdained. That's in connection to Black Lives Matter. But that is a very great question. So then Bishop was poisoned, and it's only by the grace of God that I'm here to talk about it. As we're talking about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project created
And one last quick thing, Bishop. We've got
Related.
Tom Spann, who has worked as an EMT with the San Francisco Fire Department. He says that heavy metal poisoning can cause serious facial discoloration and deformity.
Wow, Jason.
And it's a horrible death.
Oh my God. They found arsenic and thallium in rat poison and rat feces in my blood. The doctors at this particular hospital, they couldn't believe it. I mean, how? So I was poisoned at a particular restaurant, right, in the Jackson Heights area of Queens. I'm not going to say which restaurant until after my litigation. So then we have to be careful. And I'm going to Chicago Thursday. I have to be careful what I eat, where I go and eat. I always face the door at the restaurant because I want to see who's coming in. But then getting back to Dr. Khalid Muhammad, he was poisoned by someone high up in the new Black Panther Party that was working for the federal government. And so we're talking about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. Now, I want to get into quickly, Jason, into the bloodlines here of not just the Wasserman bloodline, but I want to get into the Flager-Heimer bloodline. Let's start with the Wasserman bloodline. Yes, that's an excellent link there, Jason. And maybe one day we can do a series on both the original Black Panther Party and the new Black Panther Party. And we may do that in the next couple of weeks. Let's do that. So then, Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. Now, the Wasserman bloodline goes back to the latter part of the 1500s. Man, I'm excited about this teaching today. And so the generations of Casey Wasserman that go back 500, 600, 700 years in the Federation of the Russian Empire. A man by the name of Patriarch Wasserman. Now, last time, Jason, I didn't go back that far when I was with you, but I did an in-depth research in an in-depth study concerning the bloodline of the Wassermans. Now, Jason, there is a book called The Starker, capital Starker, The Starker, Big Jack Zelig, Zelig, the Becker Rosenthal case in the advent of the Jewish gangster. The Starker, there you go. In other words, the advent of the Jewish gangster by Rose Keith, a Jewish powerful woman. Okay. Also, there's another book called The Jews of Detroit by Robert A. Rockaway, he's one of my favorite authors, Jason. Matter of fact, my favorite authors are Jewish because their mindset is on another level spiritually. So then, according to Rose Keith, the advent of the Jewish gangster in the Jews of Detroit by Robert A. Rockaway, who is the professor emeritus at Tel Aviv University in Israel.
But wait a minute.
He's,
I can't help but notice his last name. What about the Rockaways in Queens?
you know what? I thought about the same. Oh my God. And maybe one day we have to do a series on the origins of names in and
Yeah,
around the five boroughs of New York City.
right.
Was the Rockaway section designed by Jews? Nothing wrong with that. I think it's beautiful. So then the Jews of Detroit, from the beginning, 1762 to 1914, including the advent of the Jewish gangster by Rose Keith, powerful Jewish writers, they said that the Wasserman bloodline, including Jason, there's a third book called Words of the Uprooted Jewish Immigrants in Early 20th Century. Words of the Uprooted Jewish Immigrants in Early 20th Century by Robert A. Rockaway. So then, these Jewish writers are saying that the generations of the Wassermans begins in the late 1500s during the time of the court of Peter the Great and Catherine the Great, later on Catherine II. A man by the name of Patriarch Wasserman, okay, was an advisor to Peter the Great, okay? Now, remember John Dee, you and I have been talking about him the past few weeks, being both an advisor, a witch and a warlock to the court of the British Crown during the same part of the late 1500s, early part of the 1600s. So then Patriarch Wasserman was the Jewish equivalent of the British John Dee. Patriarch Wasserman, according to Dr. A. Rockaway's book, Words of the Uprooted Jewish Immigrants in Early 20th Century, including the Book of American Jewish Gangsters, the Book of the American Jewish Gangsters, a pictorial history by Maximilian Zellner, another powerful Jewish writer, that Patriarch Wasserman was a spiritual advisor to Peter the Great during the bloodline of Peter the Great, connected to the bloodline of the Wassermans. So Patriarch Wasserman was a warlock and a witch who was high up in the court of Peter the Great, who then created the first underground child trafficking network in Central Russia in 1595. This is according to Dr. Robert A. Rockaway, okay, of the Words of the Uprooted Jewish Immigrants. Also, according to The Advent of the Jewish Gangster by Dr. Rose Keith, including the Jews of Detroit. These writers said that Patriarch Wasserman, and these are Jewish writers, said that Patriarch Wasserman built the first underground child trafficking network
Wow.
in and around which is called Moscow today.
Wow.
Now,
You know, Bishop, when I Google Patriarch Wasserman, because of the generic nature of the term patriarch,
yes,
it's
sir.
not zeroing in on those findings, but as an interesting side note, it did bring up this LA Times article from 1998 where they're telling us
Ah,
about Lou Wasserman retiring from the board of Seagram's, which is
ah,
owned by the Bronfmans and was just
yes,
implicated recently in that Nexium sex cult that involved
yes.
all those Hollywood actresses.
Absolutely. If we get time, we may touch on the Nexium conspiracy being subsidized by Bronfman money from the great grandchildren or the great great grandchildren of both Samuel Bronfman and Edgar Bronfman Sr. Edgar Bronfman Jr. Was the former CEO of Viacom. Brilliant businessman by all accounts. Sorry about the noise. So
It's
then,
okay.
when we talk about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. So these Jewish authors said Patriarch Wasserman had then impregnated a 15-year-old girl, thereby gives birth to a son by the name of Shamil Mordecai Wasserman. Shamil, capital Schmule, Mordecai Wasserman, who was also an advisor to the court of Catherine II, who dealt in divinational witchcraft through the manipulation of the reality of Russia, the time of Russia, and the probability of the throne of Peter the Great through Catherine the Great the First. So Shamil Monarchiah then gives birth to R. Meyer Levy Wasserman. R apostrophe Meyer, capital Meier, Levy, capital Levy, Wasserman, who was also heavily involved in the underground child trafficking network in the Federation of Russia. As we're breaking down for your listeners on Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed, and it gets deeper, Jason. So then, R. Maya Levy Wasserman then marries a 17-year-old girl, and this is according, my friend, according to the book called The Book of American Jewish Gangsters, where they talk about Lou Wasserman, a pictorial history by Maximilian Zellner. These are Jewish writers. Dr. Zellner said that Isaac Wasserman, who was the son of Meyer Levy Wasserman, had married a young lady by the name of Minnie Chernak, okay, whose bloodline is connected to the Lowe's family, and the Lowe's family of the Lowe's Corporation are connected to the Flagerheimers and to the Schultz. In other words, they're all related, Jason. So Isaac Wasserman immigrates to Cleveland, Ohio, okay, in the year of 1918. This is also according to the book called European Jewry Before and After Hitler. European Jewry Before and After Hitler by Salon W. Barron, who was also Jewish, a powerful Jewish writer. He said that Isaac Wasserman immigrated from the Russian Federation after the downfall of Tsar Nicholas II and the Romanovs, okay, after the Bolshevik Revolution in October 1917. Isaac Wasserman and his wife moved to Cleveland, Ohio, okay, and then gave birth to Lou Wasserman. Here we go. So Lou Wasserman, who was a powerful Hollywood agent and very manipulating by all accounts, had trained and taught his grandson, Casey Wasserman, how to fully manipulate the mind through negotiations. Lou Wasserman, wearing those Jewish gangster glasses, okay, was heavily connected to the Lucchese family out of New York City, who was heavily connected to Frankie Carbo, who ran the boxing industry during the 1940s and 50s, was fixing fights with Joe Louis and Max Schmeling, okay, and Sugar Ray Robinson and Jersey Joe Walcott. So Frankie Carbo was connected to Lou Wasserman, Mo Dalitz, who created Hollywood, including Bugsy Siegel. I'm talking about Lou Wasserman. These are according to Jewish writers of Dr. Robert A. Rockaway, Maximilian Zellner, Rose Keith, okay, and also according to Dr. A. Rockaway's book, The Jews of Detroit. So when we're talking about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed, somebody might say, well, what does all this have to do with Kobe Bryant? Because Kobe Bryant and Chadwick Boseman were connected to the generations of these gangsters, Jason, that contributed to the demise of both Kobe Bryant and Chadwick Boseman. So then Lou Wasserman and his wife have a daughter by the name of Lynn K. Wasserman, who then has a son by the name of Casey Wasserman. Casey Wasserman created the Wasserman Media Group, which still exists today. Hired Arm Tellem. Arm Tellem worked for Casey Wasserman for the Wasserman Media Group for a protracted period of 34 years. Arm Tellem now runs the Detroit Pistons. So Arm Tellem signed Kobe Bryant out of high school in 1996. Now, originally, Kobe was designated to be the seventh pick in the 1996 draft, but a player by the name of Lorenzen Wright, who later was murdered, Jason. Lorenzen Wright, who played for the Memphis Grizzlies, was taken out by the Dixie mob because Lorenzen Wright was exposing David Stern, okay, Adam Silver, and the entire National Basketball Association being connected to organized crime, not just here in New York City, but in Hollywood with the Khazarian Mafia. Lorenzen Wright was texting his mother right before he got killed.
Wow.
And they blew him away. So you got, for the past 80 years, Jason, man, my God, let me take my time. For the past 80 years, you've had at least, past 40 years, excuse me, for the past 40 years, for the past 40 years, the NBA has had 80 NBA players die under mysterious circumstances for the past 40 years, die of heart attacks. Okay, those heart attacks were never revealed or discovered during their playing days because they constantly get physicals every month, Jason. But all of a
they're
sudden,
super fit guys in their 20s and 30s.
yes. And so all of a sudden, like Dennis Johnson, who played for both the Seattle Supersonics and the Boston Celtics, dies of a heart condition. Okay?
Weird.
And so they die of heart conditions, heart attacks, brain aneurysms, helicopter crashes, plane crashes, suicide. No. These people were taken out because of what they knew about David Stern and Adam Silver. The NBA is nothing but a present day mafia organization where their head person is not just, we're talking about the late David Stern, okay? But we're talking about LeBron James. LeBron James, who has that boule tattooed on his chest, excellent link there, Jason. Homicide, suicide, self-defense, cancers. We call it like it is, okay? So then what else do we expect from a pig other than a grunt? These are not accidental. These men were taken out for the past 40 years because of what they knew about David Stern and Adam Silver in connection to the underworld here, not just in New York City, but in Chicago and in Hollywood. Because the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball, the National Hockey League is nothing but a psyop. In other words, they know who's going to win the Super Bowl 5 years from now, Jason. And before we get back to Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed in connection, okay, to the Wasserman bloodline. For the past 30 years, there's been a pattern, a trend, my friend, that any team that has won a Super Bowl, okay? Let me say this again. Any team that has won a Super Bowl, that team 90% of the time had built a new stadium or arena. So that anytime there is a professional football team, an NFL team, who builds a new stadium or an arena, there's a 90% chance at some point they're going to win a Super Bowl. So when the Oakland Raiders, they move to Las Vegas for this year, I guarantee you, if not this year, then next year or 3 years down the road, they're going to win a Super Bowl. Jason, this is the manipulation of reality, time, and probability. And so then, as we go deeper into the Wasserman bloodline, it gets even deeper, Jason. And so then, according to the book European Jewry, before and after Hitler by Dr. Salon W. Barron, a powerful Jewish writer, Dr. Barron says that going back to the 1500s, Jason, give me 5 minutes and I'm done. Going back to the 1500s, there was a bloodline called the Annenbergs, which they own most of your newspapers and media outlets today through the Annenberg Foundation, through the Triangle Publishing Communications Network that was created by Walter Annenberg.
So there's some kind of Annenberg Center in LA that I used to drive by.
Yes. So the Annenberg family owed money. So it goes back to the 1500s in Central and Eastern Germany, Jason. When Germany was under the Prussian, not the Russian, the Prussian Empire. So the Annenberg family, Moses Annenberg, in the mid-1500s, in 1550, and this is according to European Jewry, before and after Hitler by Salon W. Barron, Dr. Barron says that Moses Annenberg changes his name from Moses Annenberg to Moses Flegenheimer because Eastern, Central, and Western Europe Jews were being taxed heavily by those countries through the Black nobility families, the royal families of Eastern, Central, and Western Europe. And one day you and I are going to do a detailed research into the historical origins and the bloodlines of every European royal family in history. They're all related by blood. As we're talking about Kobe Bryant, the Luciferian project completed. So Moses Flegerheimer's real name was Moses Annenberg. Moses Annenberg, who becomes Moses Flegerheimer, gives birth to Israel Flegenheimer, okay? And Israel Flegerheimer, who was born in Ludershausen, Germany, okay? Now, one of the sons of Israel Flegerheimer was Loews Flegerheimer, capital Loews, whose bloodline created the Loews Corporation today. Wait a minute.
Well, don't they own movie theaters?
Yes, they own movie theaters. Yes, absolutely. So the Loews, and I believe they own a lot of the car companies. They own a lot of hardware corporations and sublet companies all over the world.
Hotels.
So there you go. So the Loews Corporation, the bloodline goes back to the Annenbergs through the Flegerheimers. So Moses Flegerheimer, Annenberg, gives birth to Israel Flegerheimer. One of the sons of Israel Flegerheimer is Loew Flegerheimer, from whence we get the Loews Corporation. And then the son of Israel Flegerheimer, who is Israel Flegerheimer Jr. Israel Flegerheimer Jr. is the brother of Loews Flegerheimer. Israel Flegerheimer was born in Tarmbach, Baden, Germany. Wait a minute now. So Israel Jr. or Israel II, the grandson, Jason, of Israel Flegerheimer, was born in Tarmbach, Baden, Germany. He then was one of the first ones in history, along with King James I, in going back to the early 1600s, that had created the horse race betting system. called the horse race wire. Okay, they created the racing wire gambling casino system of gambling horses. It was the Flagerheimer bloodline who helped create that psyop. Israel Flagerheimer Jr., who was the grandson of Israel Flagerheimer the first, gave birth to a young man, a young boy by the name of Hermann Flagerheimer in Tarbach, Baden, Germany. Jason, it gets deeper here. So then
Whoa. Wait,
Herman,
Bishop.
yeah,
Sorry, real
Herman,
quick. Just in looking this up, it says in 1939, California State Attorney General Earl Warren launched a
oh my
campaign
God,
against illegal gambling. He was
oh,
the guy who
the,
was the head of the Warren
the
Commission.
Warren Commission, yes. Oh my, excellent, excellent, of the Warren Commission. And I believe Alan Dulles was on the Warren Commission now.
Yeah.
Why would you invite the fox that destroyed the chicken coop, Warren of Alan Dulles, to be on the Warren Commission? And so then, this Herman Flagerheimer, who is the great 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 grandson of Moses Annenberg Flagerheimer, was born in Tarbach, Germany. And it gets deeper here, Jason. So Herman Flagerheimer, his wife, Jason, gives birth. His wife's name was Emma Flagerheimer, the wife of Herman Flagerheimer. She gives birth to a son by the name of author Simon Flagerheimer, who then becomes Dutch Schultz. So then Dutch Schultz changed his name from author Simon Flagerheimer when he was 18, okay, to Dutch Schultz after another killer. We're talking about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. So then, we'll probably finish this up on next week. So then, author Simon Flagerheimer is in the bloodline of the Annenbergs, the Lows, including later the Schultz. Jason, it gets deeper here. So the wife of Herman Flagerheimer, Emma Flagerheimer, she gives birth to author Simon Flagerheimer, Dutch Schultz. Dutch Schultz marries Frances Flagerheimer. The maiden name, Jason, of Frances Flagenheimer, okay, her maiden name is Maxwell. Hold on to your socks, Jason. So let's examine the Maxwell bloodline. The Maxwell bloodline is connected to the Annenbergs, that's connected to the Flagerheimers, that's connected to the Wassermans, that's connected to the Schultz, that's connected to the Schwartz, that's connected to the Schoenberg. Remember August Schoenberg, who created, okay, the Belmont Stakes. It was August Belmont Schoenberg, who never whipped his slaves, Jason. He would burn his slaves at the stake. That's why the Belmont Stakes is called the Belmont Stakes.
Right.
So then all of these families, Annenbergs, Flagerheimers, Schultz, Schwartz, Schoenbergs, Wassermans, and the Maxwells are all related by blood. There you go, Jason. You know where I'm going with this. So the maiden name of the wife of Dutch Schultz is Maxwell. Okay? Her bloodline goes back to Alfred L. Maxwell. So the maiden name of the wife of Dutch Schultz is Maxwell. Goes back to Alfred Maxwell, not just to the United Kingdom, but to both Czechoslovakia and the Ukraine, Jason. It gets deeper here. So then the Maxwells goes back to the 1500s in Czechoslovakia, Poland, including the Ukraine. Their names was originally the Hawk bloodline, capital Hoch, Hawk bloodline, which was a bloodline of black nobility. So Michelle Hawk, capital Mechel Hawk, gave birth to the Maxwell bloodline, changed his name from Michelle Hawk to Michelle Maxwell to hide his money from the Prussian Empire that ruled both Czechoslovakia and the Ukraine, including the Russian Federation.
Wow.
So then the great great grandson of Alfred L. Maxwell Hawk is Sir Ian Robert Maxwell. Jason, it gets
The
crazy.
father of Ghislaine.
Yes. So then he gives birth. His wife's name is Elizabeth Maynard. The Maynard bloodline, capital Meynard. The mother of Ghislaine Maxwell is Elizabeth Maynard Maxwell, in the Maynard bloodline, capital Meynard, is related to the Annenbergs, the Flagerheimers, the Schultz, the Schwartz, the Soros, okay, the Wassermans, and the Hawk family, where they all intermarried through incest going back 1,500 years, Jason.
Hmm.
I'm not talking about Jewish people. I'm talking about these devils here. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell, then, is related by blood to Dutch Schultz.
Wow.
Oh, my, Jason, I wish you had more time. Listen, 2 minutes, and she's related to Dutch Schultz and to the Flagerheimer / Annenberg bloodline. In the Annenbergs dynasty control America, they control the American media industrial complex, Jason. This is according to European jury before and after Hitler by Dr. Salon W. Barron, a Jewish writer. And in my conclusion, Jason, where does Debbie Wasserman Schultz come into play?
Yeah.
So then Debbie Wasserman Schultz, her father is Larry Wasserman. Her mother is Ann Wasserman. So the grandmother of the mother of Ann Wasserman, who is the mother of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the mother of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, her grandmother was also named Ann Davis Flagerheimer. That was the name of one of the children of Dutch Schultz.
Huh. So what's going on there, Bishop?
So in other words, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Jason, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, let me get to her. Stay there, right? I love that link. So Debbie Wasserman Schultz's husband, Steve Schultz, his grandmother's maiden name is Fliegerheimer. Wait a minute now. So then the grandmother of the mother of Debbie Wasserman Schultz was a Fliegerheimer. The grandmother of the husband of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Steve Schultz, his grandmother was a Fliegerheimer. In other words, Debbie Wasserman Schultz technically married a blood relative of hers, Larry Schultz.
Wow.
This is according to Dr. Rockaway, okay? Dr. Robert A. Rockaway, Dr. Rose Keith, Dr. Maximilian Zillner, okay? These are the writers, Jason, of the Jewish diaspora, including Dr. Salon W. Barron, European Jewry before and after Hitler. So then, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is related to Judge Schultz.
What about Ghislaine Maxwell?
Yes, and yes. Oh, you got me. So wait a minute. So then Debbie Wasserman Schultz's mother's grandmother, I Flegelheimer, because the daughter of the Schultz was named Ann Davis Flegelheimer, and she's still alive.
Wow.
And the grandmother of the husband of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Larry Schultz, his grandmother is a Flegelheimer. So they have intermarried into each other's bloodline, Jason, just like the black nobility European families going back 1,500 years. So then, if you look on Google Images, oh my goodness, Debbie Wasserman Schultz during her college days was a member of Omicron, which is a secret society. Omicron, so, which is a secret society where their colors is sky blue, okay?
How do I
Black
spell
and
Omricon?
Omicron. I think it's capital Omicron. Type in Omicron / Debbie Wasserman Schultz, okay? Omicron, capital Omicron, and then like dash Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Well, what is so crazy, Jason? According to there you go, multiple Jewish writers, okay? And just type in on google.com, Debbie Wasserman Schultz Omicron, okay? That is a secret society, a female secret society that's on the level of Phi Beta Kappa and Kappa Beta Phi. Their colors is sky blue, white, and black. Okay, now, when Debbie Wasserman Schultz gets sworn in when she first got elected years ago, it shows a picture of her mother behind her wearing colors of sky blue, white, and black. Her mother is a member of this Omricon secret society. So then, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, you know this, there you go, right there. Not that one, no. There's one, go back, there's one. I see the mother in the background. No, not that one. So then there is a picture of Debbie Wasserman Schultz with her mother in the background wearing sky blue, okay? Now, that's the color of the secret society that's mostly with Jewish women today, the Omricon secret society. Her mother, there you go, right there, Jason. No, go back to the other one, the one before. Yeah, the one before. There you go. So her mother is the short woman in the back on your left. That is Ann Wasserman. Okay. Her grandmother's maiden name is Flegelheimer.
Look, also Nancy Pelosi. Wasn't her father in the mob as well?
Her father was in the mob. You're absolutely right, Jason. The father of Nancy Jezebel Pelosi ran Baltimore, Maryland, and ran drugs through Baltimore for decades, including, I believe, one of the children of Nancy Pelosi, a son, is heavily involved in this Ukrainian uranium conspiracy. Another topic for another day. Excellent. So in the back there, Ann Wasserman, her grandmother is a Flegelheimer whose name was Ann Davis. Ann Davis Flegelheimer is one of the children of Dutch Schultz. So the colors they're wearing, sky blue and white, are the colors of the Omricon secret society. So then you know that Debbie Wasserman Schultz got herself into some hot water, Jason, back in 2017 because her connection to the Anwan brothers, right?
Yes, Imran Awan.
So then in 2017, okay, she was being investigated by the FBI, and you know the story, okay, where she had hired 3 DNC IT staffers, the Anwan brothers, who got $100,000, okay, from, I believe, the Taliban out of Iraq to set up Donald Trump as far as with the Russian collusion.
Well, I never heard that aspect of the story. They were paid over $160,000 a year by Congress itself, and they were accused of hacking the congressional IT network. I'm glad you're bringing this up, Bishop, because I wanted to bring something to your attention directly related to this. So he was ultimately charged with bank fraud, And that led to a plea agreement that basically let him off with kind of virtually nothing happening. Now, here's a detail I wonder, I don't mean to scoop you if you're about to tell us
Oh
this,
no.
but
Yeah.
the prosecutor in the case was a guy by the name of Michael Mirando, who in 2020 left the Department of Justice and went to work for Facebook, of all things. He's
Right.
married to a woman named Joanna Wasserman, who, when I last checked, worked for the Holocaust Museum, but I've been unable to
Oh,
confirm if this Joanna Wasserman has any relationship with Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Jason, I will have an answer for you next week. Excellent. See, Jason, that's why, my friend, you and I work so well together because you're teaching me, you're blowing my mind. And these are connections that I would have never have thought existed. Okay. And so I believe this young lady is connected to the Wasserman bloodline, but we're going to prove that next week. Excellent, excellent research there, Jason. So the Onwon brothers were not just setting up a fake Russia collusion. In other words, they were trying to create electronic fingerprints that would point to Donald Trump as being the hacker through the Trump campaign, hacking the DNC servers, which the FBI exposed as a lie, as a fallacy. So then, the prosecuting attorney, a federal prosecutor by the name of Beraton J. Wiesenhot, okay, Berantonj, Wiesenhot, capital Whisent, was
I've spoken with his
found.
wife.
Ah, see? Now, did his wife get killed as well?
No, she was very reluctant to speak with me. At first, she seemed like she wanted to,
Oh, really?
but
Oh,
yeah, she's a law professor, I think at University of maybe
yes.
I forget, but she's a law professor at a college. And when I went to the college, she was not there. It was fairly soon after the death of her husband. And I got the impression that she wanted to talk to me, but ultimately she didn't. And the next contact I got was from her lawyer saying she doesn't want to talk to you.
You see, because her husband was found by the police with a bullet in his brain. Well, he was the one that was going after Debbie Wasserman Schultz and was also questioning her with the help of the FBI and her connection to the death of Seth Rich. Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the Clintons are complicit in the death of Seth Rich. Why was Seth Rich taken out? Because of what he knew about the Clintons and what he knew about Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And the husband of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Larry Schultz, okay, he's a gangster as well. You're dealing with gangsters here, Jason. So they tried to set up the Russia collusion, not just through Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the Onwon brothers, and trying to create electronic fingerprints that would be traced back to the Trump campaign and thereby to Donald Trump. But this federal prosecutor, Beraton J. Wiesenhot, was all of a sudden murdered. Who was behind that?
The
That's my
police
question.
have
Yeah.
not really determined. I don't know what happened with this. Did they
Yeah.
say it was murder? There was a question because
Yeah.
he was sort of, they thought it might have been suicide, but as you said, there were
Yeah.
real anomalies with the evidence that never really seems to be fully explained.
The bullet hole was on the left side of his brain, his cranium, but he was right-handed.
Yeah, things
See,
like
see,
that.
see, stuff like, who was the writer? Gary, what's his name? Gary Webb, who exposed the
Yeah.
crack cocaine. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, he was found too. Okay,
Right.
he was right-handed, but they said he shot himself in the back of the head. Okay, wait a minute now. So you're gonna shoot yourself in the. See, in other words, these people like Gary Webb and this federal prosecutor, Wiesenhot, they're taken out. So now the deep state has the goods on Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She's a devil, not because she's Jewish. She's a devil because she's a criminal. I don't care what color or what ethnicity of the person is, they are. So, Jason, that is my end of this 9-volume series entitled Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. And you were 10 steps ahead of me as far as the Maxwells. It blew my mind, Jason. They're all related.
Yeah.
So in other words, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is related to not just to Dutch Schultz, but to Jessie Maxwell.
Wow.
They're all interrelated, going back 1,500 years through a history of incest because the Rothschilds, who were formerly named Bauer in 1577 through Isaac Bauer, and he changed his name from Bauer to Rothschild because he wanted to have access to the Vatican Bank and thereby to the Vatican global system. So they changed their names, Jason, to hide their financial power and authority, not because they're Jewish. Any person can change their name. I don't care what color you are or ethnicity. So then the entire Khazarian nobility throughout Eastern, Central, and Western Europe are all interrelated by blood because they married their sisters, they married their brothers, they married their uncles and aunts to keep, as they say, the blood pure, but it's contaminated because it's incest. So, in other words, my friend, the Annenbergs, Flagerheimers, Wassermans, Myers, Meinard, Maxwell, the Hawk family, okay, are then also related to the Schultz, to the Swartz. And remember the beer company, I believe it may still exist today, called the Slits.
Oh, Schlitz. Yeah.
Slits, yes. They go back to the 1200s under the bloodline of von Schlichman. Von Schlichman was a part of the black nobility line of the Prussian Empire going back to the 1200s. These people are also involved in satanic ritualistic sacrifice, according to the writings of Dr. Robert A. Rockaway, who's also Jewish. So the Slits Company and most, and this is what I'm about to say, this is not a racist connotation with which the bishop is about to say, but mostly African Americans, not all, but a great percentage, drank that beer. Why? That's another topic for another day. So the Schultz, the Swartz, the Slitch Company, the Goats, the Gortese family, the Schwartz, the family line of Neiman Marcus, including the Annenbergs, the Flagerheimers, the Wassermans, the Maxwells, the Hawk family, going back to the Czechoslovakian and the Ukrainian empires under the covering, the legal covering of the Prussian Empire. We're talking about going back thousands of years. And it was Robert A. Maxwell, right, who had built one of the most powerful publishing houses in the world, the Pergamon Press Corporation. Well, to all of your biblical students, Pergamon, in the book of the Revelation of St. John the Divine, when you look in Pergamon, okay, Pergamon in Greek culture and Greek and Cyprian mythology was also the god of manipulation of what? Reality, time, and probability. Now, the Pergamon structures, okay, that's in the Greek and the Cyprian empires, and which also reveals the altar of Pergamon. Now, remember during the 2008 Democratic National Convention, where Barack Obama spoke in Denver, Colorado, okay, and the backdrop of that stage during the 2008 DNC National Convention was the perfect replica or replication of the Pergamon altar. So you're looking at 2008 Barack Obama speech at the 2008 Democratic National Convention in Denver, Colorado. How would Barack Obama know about the altar of Pergamon? How would the Democratic Party know about the backdrop of the Pergamon bloodline? Well, President Barack Obama, there you go, or Barack Obama, that stage, the background there is the perfect schematical structure of the Pergamon altar, where Barack Hussein Berisatoro, okay, which his stepfather, Mr. Sotoro, was heavily connected to the CIA. I mean, we will talk about that in the coming weeks to come. But that stage there, Jason, is the altar of Pergamon, where this demon here, Barack Obama, was not elected. Barack Obama was selected by the global elite of the Rothschilds, the Annenbergs, the Flagerheimers, the Wasserman, okay? As we're talking about Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. That is the altar of Pergamon that was built for the 2008 Democratic National Convention. And
Wow.
that is the end of volume 9 of Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. Man of God, Brother Jason, mind-blowing information today for your listeners.
Absolutely, Bishop. I think I need to watch this again to absorb all of that.
Yes.
I want to remind people, though, they can get more of the Bishop by listening to him on the radio. You can tune in on 92.9 FM in the New York and New Jersey area, Thursdays from 7 to 9. You can also hear that radio broadcast on liferadionj.com/Gaiters in the iHeartRadio syndication network. The Bishop is growing in notoriety and he's appearing all over the place. People can help support the global spiritual revolution by going to paypal.me/GSRR Media Group. If you're watching the show each week and you're enjoying it, we do provide it here free of charge, but obviously it can't continue without your sponsorship. So please visit paypal.me/GSRR Media Group and make a financial contribution of your choice. You can also sponsor the show and this channel by going to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. I'll be back tonight with another sponsor exclusive episode of More Pain Tonight. Don't miss that. Get onto Patreon and Subscribestar. Bishop, we'll be back next week. There's a lot more to discuss about all of this, and I'm looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to, and to your listeners, look up Andy Irons, capital Irons. He was a surfer that was hired by Casey Wasserman through the Wasserman Media Corporation, where there's a section of the Wasserman Media empire called the Wasserman Surfers. Andy Irons was set to testify before Congress, but all of a sudden he dies of an overdose. Connected to Casey Wasserman. And maybe we can get into that next week. Andy Irons, okay? In connection, he says that before his death, that Casey Wasserman, through the Wasserman media empire, were drug runners and drug traffickers. And they had also practiced and were involved in the trafficking of children. I'm talking about Casey Wasserman in the Wasserman media empire, but also they're connected to the events at the Standard Hotel. This is what Andy Irons was going to testify, but all of a sudden, Jason, Andy Irons dies of a drug overdose. And also check out a man by the name of Paul Naude, capital Naude, capital Naude. He was a South African, okay, heavily connected to drug trafficking and pedophilia, along with the Wasserman media empire, complicit in the death of Andy Irons, okay? And last but not least, yes, there you go. And last but not least, remember that Amr Khan Secret Society I told you about 10 minutes ago concerning Debbie Wasserman Schultz and her mother, Ann Wasserman. That's called the Omicron Delta Kappa Secret Society. Omicron, capital O-M-I, Omicron, capital O-M-I-C-R-O-N.
Ooh.
Delta Kappa, there you go.
But it also looks like OAK, which is a club in New York and Las Vegas. I think it's called
really?
One of a Kind.
Oh my God. Oh, Jason, we got to get into that next. Really? What? And look at the colors. The same colors that the reef is sky blue, same colors that Debbie Wasserman Schultz She was wearing when she got sworn in years ago, including what her mother was wearing, the
Sorry,
Amacon Delta
yeah,
Sigma Society. Yeah.
it was One Oak, one of a kind is the club I'm thinking about that uses
Wow.
this shield
Wow, Jason. You know
with a
what?
leaf.
Nothing is by accident. Nothing is by accident. And maybe next week we can probably continue this Kobe Bryant and Luciferian project completed and just wrap it up next week. And then I'll probably leave that alone for from some months until something else comes up. So it's and so then the Romanovs, right? The Romanovs, that's not their real name, okay? And so the Romanovs, and then the bloodline of the Wassermans, right, and the Annenbergs, including the Flegerheimers, goes back to the early 1200s, okay? They were also called Galatian Jews, okay? Galatian Jews of Turkish origin that you and I call Khazarians. And that
Yeah.
is volume 9 of Kobe Bryant, a Luciferian project completed. Mind-blowing information today for your listeners, Jay.
Well done, Bishop. Thank you for
Thank
that.
you.
We'll
Thank you,
see
sir.
everybody later tonight. Thanks for watching.